Now, negotiations for a new minimum wage appear to have hit the rocks, with organized labor on Wednesday saying they were pulling out of the engagement with the federal government. The development follows the offer of 48,000 naira minimum wage proposed by the federal government. In the wake of the walkout staged by the NLC and Trade Union Congress during a meeting with the National Wage Committee, the Nigeria Employees Consultative Association has called on representatives of organized labor to return to the negotiating table. Arise News analyst Dayo Sobowale joins us now to discuss that call for rapprochement as well as the need for greater harmony in labor relations in Nigeria. Good afternoon, Mr. Sobowale. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure being here, Suja.
Of course, it's great to have you. Now, when we look at the gesture by labor walking out, organized labor walking out, do you think that it was warranted considering the offer that was made of 48,000 naira by the government?
Well, I think it was inevitable because of the disparity, the long gap between what both sides have on the ground. 48,000, 15,000. There's no meeting point. There will never be a meeting point. So to me, labor is involved in what I would call combative industrial relations, not integrative industrial relations, where both sides treat each other with respect and find a solution, and it's a win-win situation. I don't see why it should be like that, but it is bound to be like that, given the gap I said before. Now, government said 48. What was on the ground before was 35 or 30, 35. Well, if you look at it, small increment, but an increment is still there. But if Labour now says it will have 615 and nothing else, then there's no meeting point. And Labour went on to say that government has not given its own data for coming to 48,000, whereas it outlined its own data the other time for getting 615 for a family of 4, and I then accused them of lumping fringe benefits with wages and so on. But then they are stuck by their guns. Government has to negotiate. But you see, I don't want to be on the side of government in this negotiation, because government has not shown prudence or frugality in the way it is managing its affairs. The cost of living is soaring because of inflation. But the cost of governance is astronomical. Our budgeting is, normally you have a deficit that's about 6% of GDP. Our own is just soaring. We all know that. And the foreign exchange thing there, we see it in the dailies all the time. I do not like seeing it because it upsets me. But see, the cost of, we import almost everything we use in this country. And the cost is bound to go high. The corporate bodies, the manufacturing companies, the companies involved in supplying all our manufacturing and service needs use foreign exchange. So if the cost is that high, it is bound to affect the cost of production, and it pass the cost of production to the consumer, which is what is happening. The boss of the consumer price index, in narrating all the food prices rising all over, made a suggestion that government should peg the naira dollar thing to between 800 and 1,000. I've been saying that here for some time, but if you say it, you look like a Marxist or a socialist. But inevitably, that is what is going to happen. And then again, look at the parody of we borrow money all the time, literally. Although for beneficial usage, the government just got approval for the $500 million to buy meters. We need the meters, we need the electricity. But we cannot be borrowing money interminably when purchasing power of people is being eroded constantly. There must be a check and balance, you get me, to contain consumer or voter resentment of the government they put in power. Government must make a conscious effort to do that. Must make a conscious effort. And government now is not only the presidency. You have a presidential system of checks and balances. You have the presidency, you have the legislature, and you have the judiciary. You see, the legislature should weigh in and find a way of making legislation that will make life more meaningful for Nigerians. You see, we are always referring to America. In the US now, they have far more debts than us. But this is they are having election this year now. They have set up a debt commission to find out how they will cut their debt and release money for infrastructure and all that. But you see, they know where each other stands. The Democrats, social welfare, they want money spent on that. The Republicans, they want to cut tax. Get me? Neither wants to be seen doing the opposite in an election year, so they are passing it to next year. But at least they know the values on the ground and what they were elected for. Our legislators should show such spine, you get me, and find out how people can live in a responsible, dignified way and earn a living. And then that is even that. But you see, it is the informal economy that is saving this country now. But the informal economy, we do not have sufficient data on it. Because you look at it, if people were really starving, at the rate at which labor computed is 615, and at the rate at which this exchange rate is going, soaring like that, killing industry, literally, there will be no food on the streets. But you look out, there is food. You get me? The prices are high, but people still buy them. So it means, you see, the inflation is artificial. That is my own. The inflation is that people still have things. Look at the markets. They are go to the grocery stores, the supermarkets. They are bringing the products. See, you may not be able to afford some now, like some medications. But you see, you have the Chinese medications. If you choose to buy a particular brand at 50,000, there is a Chinese something which will cost maybe 200 naira. You go under the bridges and all over, you see these outside traders, they sell a lot of things that if those things are not available, people would have died of malnutrition and penury. So, see, labor should be realistic. I'm sure even their followership, they will be laughing at them. Because they know this government will never agree to pay 615 naira. And government has said 48. Okay. Let government to provide a backdrop, some data, or now it's arrived at that. That's what they are challenging government to do now. But you see, because people are getting, how do I put it, docile politically, people are not even looking up to government, literally. They are trying to make ends meet. If you are at war, that would be a nice thing, but you are not at war. You get me? So government must find a way of coming back to the table with labor and make a, and as labor demanded, let us say how it got to 48,000 and tell us why it cannot at least increase it to 60,000. And let labor tell us that unless it is not being retaliatory, how on earth did it expect government to pay 615,000?
Now, let's talk about this point that you made about government coming back to the table, because in the report, and of course this is just Labour's side of the story, they say that the ministers did not stay to the end of the meeting, to the end of the negotiation. They also alluded to the fact that
Labour walked out. That's what I read.
Before Labour walked out, they say that the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning had already left the meeting. And they also report that the governor who was present, Governor Soludo, was, according to their report, preoccupied with defending his state as opposed to negotiating with them. So the picture painted by the Labour representatives from that meeting seems as though they also felt that there wasn't a seriousness in the engagement that they were getting from government behind closed doors. So my question is, besides threatening to strike, is there any other way to resolve this? Is there any other way for government to take this seriously? Because it almost seems like this issue is not being treated with the seriousness that it deserves.
Let me answer your question. You see, you look at it from both sides. If government is not taking labor seriously, perhaps it thinks labor has no strength as such, that it can back, but it cannot bite, which is is a dangerous or very bad perception for labor in the face of negotiation. Now, if labor says government itself is not taking things seriously, the governor is talking about his state, the minister did not wait till the end of the matter. No government can afford to take the labor unions, or can afford to treat them with levity. No government can afford that. And I don't think this government can dare to do that. But if labor has turned itself into the child that cries wolf while there is not, and then nobody comes to see it later, or is seen as somebody just making noise without no bite, that is bad for labor system. So, if our labor leaders, I would teach government a lesson. You got to call out people on the strike and let government know that we are worth what you say we are. You get me now? So it's a muscle flexing, but it is at the expense of the Nigerian people. And time is not on the side of both labor and government. Let me say candidly, I find 615 ridiculous, yes? And in the light of that, government cannot just come up with 48,000, given the cost of governance, given the sign of opulence and wealth you see all around us. Please, something has to give. Labor should stop its combative industrial relations. Government should take labor more seriously. More seriously. That is my advice for now.
I wish you were the labor leader at this point. But for now,
we're all about to join labor.
At this point. Thank you so much, Arise News analyst Mr. Dayo Sobowale, for your insight and your advice. Thank you very much.